Good morning and welcome to this week's pet pairing. Let's start doing our makeup and we're going to continue chatting. I'm going to start with my Inglot eyeshadow base as usual. So tomorrow is D-Day. As I'm filming this, it is Wednesday the 27th of September, meaning that tomorrow the holiday collection from Pat is finally releasing. The question is, has everyone already made up their mind what they're going to be purchasing from this collection? What have you settled on finally? I still think I'm going to stick to what I was planning initially. I'm going to blur my pores a little bit with this Becca extremely old Ever Matte Priming Poreless Filter. I still think I'm going to get the big Mega Mothership with the greens, and I'm going to go for the bundle of the queens because I'm still very curious about the queens and what they're going to be like and what they're going to look like in real life, because frankly she hasn't released all that much swatches or really all that much extra footage of them that isn't so filtered, like it is filtered beyond recognition. So in my opinion it is still extremely difficult to say what these are actually going to look like in real life. They look pretty glorious in the reels, but what exactly the colors are going to be, I have zero clue. For instance, the very popular Lunar Nightshade looks completely different in her reels compared to the photos. In the photos, it looks a bit brighter, like the blues especially, they look a little bit brighter and more blue. Whereas in the reels, one of them definitely looks like black with multicolored sparkle, like maybe like teal colored sparkle. And then the aqua blue shade with the pink duochrome, because that's what it implies to be, looks a lot darker and a lot more like silver in her reels, so I have absolutely no idea what we're going to get in real life. I will mix a little bit of my Dior Backstage foundation into one with my Estee Lauder in the shade 3N1. And then, since we're talking about the queens, I actually wanted to touch upon like a little thought process revelation that I've had about these queens, because now I have all the... Do I have basically all the queens she has released? I think so, because she released the 2 holiday queens last year for the first time, Bronze Bliss and Nude Allure, and the 3 queens for the Star Wars, the second Star Wars collaboration, which I am now also in the proud possession of. So, owning all of her queens, I can finally tell you that there is actually a difference between the holiday queens and the Star Wars queens in terms of the variety of textures. I think that there is one specific texture that is not present in the holiday queens, but it is quite prevalent in the Star Wars queens. Let me grab a brush to blend out my foundation so that we can talk about it. I do actually have all of my queens here, and I do want to show you in a second what I'm talking about. But I think that there are several shades, and you will immediately recognize when I point out the shades in a second what I'm talking about. But in the queens, as well as in the Huetopian Dream Palette, there is this formula of metallic eyeshadow, which is which feels like so putty that it almost resembles a cream that is pressed into a pan. Now I can't wait to show you, but I also have to like do a little bit of extra concealing of my friend over here. So I'm grabbing a small brush, this one is from Spectrum Collections, and I'm just going to do some spot concealing here to cover up my friend. Totally self-afflicted, by the way. It didn't just sprout, I was like fucking around with something there, so it is completely and utterly my fault. So the texture that I'm referring to, I think I first like really noticed quite prominently in the Sid Seduction palette, and the shade that I'm talking about is this one here. This is the shade Mustafar Heat, and I remember when I did my like first impression of these palettes, I swatched this eyeshadow and I thought, oh, this is a beast of a completely different nature. And it is actually present across all 3 of the Star Wars queens. So we got Mustafar Heat here. Then we have in the golden one, this shade here, which is the exact same formula. It is this very dense, very slippy feeling. It has like a lot of slip to it, very silicone-y feeling texture that I think is exactly like a cream. And in here, I definitely think this shade, this purple shade, is this texture, and possibly this like raspberry-ish type shades. But what is interesting is, and let me see if I can hold this up so that you can appreciate it. None of the Holiday Queens had these textures. So let me hold up my beloved Bronze Bliss next to the Divine Droid. You will see this texture here from this shade isn't present in any of the shades in Bronze Bliss. I'm going to take the Lancome Dainty Doll Concealer to quickly conceal, and I don't think that I had ever really thought about these differences in the textures up until I got the golden one this past weekend. And that also makes me wonder if perhaps that is the reason why I have actually heard from several people that they didn't like the Star Wars Queens as much as they liked the Holiday Queens, and it always baffled me a little bit because I figured, you know, but they're the same format, so they're the same formula. So there are similar formulas for sure across the 3 different queens from the Star Wars and the Holiday collection. I'm not saying that the Star Wars Queens are an entirely different kind of texture. Let me set my foundation with a little bit of the Airbrush Flawless Finish from Charlotte Tilbury. So I'm actually very curious to hear from you if you have these queens and the queens from the Holiday collection. Have you noticed what I'm talking about? And if you were one of the people who was not a huge fan of the Star Wars Queens but was a huge fan of the Holiday release, is that something that you think might have been the reason that you enjoyed the Star Wars ones a bit less than the original release? And I will tell you why I think that. Because as much as I like how these eyeshadows swatch and how impactful they look and how smooth, I don't know that I really like this texture for putting it on your eyes, on your lids. It's very difficult to demonstrate in swatching these eyeshadows because, like I said, they swatch amazing. You get a bit of the product on your finger and then it just basically goes on and on in terms of swatching power, and it looks impactful and it looks shiny. FYI, none of these eyeshadows is very sparkly, so that's one of the reasons I personally am not the hugest fan. You know, I like to have my sparkle. These are in that aspect quite, well, plain, but also this slippery texture, I don't know that I really like it, and I don't know that it really translates so easily on the lid. As I said on Monday, a texture like this requires care when you're putting it on your eyes, and most importantly, a formula like that is very likely to crease more. So even when I was applying it, I could notice that it doesn't grip as well in certain spots on my eyelid, and during the day I noticed some little cracks that were happening on my lids, and it was not creasing, it was just because of the nature of this eyeshadow, it was cracking a bit. And I don't want you to think that I was walking around with cracky eyelids. No, it was just one teeny tiny spot where the eyeshadow had cracked a bit, but it is what I mean when I talk about this texture, that it behaves somewhat differently and I find it less user-friendly, and it is just not my favorite. And then I realized that a texture that reminds me of this, that I felt the exact same way about, was that darn Imposter Multichrome in the Huetopian Dream palette. You remember when she... Well, we're going to use Huetopia later, so I might as well open it up. But you remember when she snuck in a shade in a metallic pan in her Mothership palettes, and the first one that she did that for was Mothership 9 Huetopian Dream, and the shade that I'm talking about is this one here, the Multichrome shade. To me, that one feels rather similar. Okay, let's talk a little bit about brushes, because I've picked up 2 of the new... What's the new collection from Sonia G called? The Fundamentals set. I want to say these are called the Fundamentals set. They were released already a couple of months ago, and they come with these absolutely magnificent walnut wood handles. Just so beautiful. I love wooden handles like this, and that is one of the reasons that I also fell in love with the original Keiyaki set. The Keiyaki set is a different kind of wood, but these wooden handles, they really speak to me. They just give me all the warm fuzzy feelings. And I've pulled out this brush coincidentally, but it's actually really good to show because these are exactly the same brush. So this is from the Keiyaki set, and it was the first time that she released this brush. This is the Classic Cheek. And when she released the Fundamentals set, now she included this brush, but now we know in a normal size with the long handle. And I've really fallen in love with this brush because I love using it for both bronzer and blush, and it is just so incredibly soft. It is like little kitty paws stroking your face, so I really like it. And I wanted to have basically sort of like, I like to have backups of my most favorite brushes, and I also wanted to have it in this beautiful wooden handle. So that's why I purchased this brush, and I purchased one more brush from the Fundamental set, but we're going to test it out in a bit. I'm first going to apply a little bit of bronzer and blush, and for my bronzer I'm going to take Bronze Mahogany from Pat McGrath Labs, and I'm going to go in with a very light hand because this is obviously not a shade that is really meant for someone with my skin. So anyway, I think those were all of my epiphanies regarding the Star Wars queens versus the holiday queens. And now you're probably wondering what I think the new queens from Holiday 2023 are going to be. It's very hard to tell, obviously, in photos, but from what I have seen, I don't think that we're getting that formula in the holiday queens. It seems like the holiday queens from this year are more like the holiday queens from last year, which I personally like prefer to have the textures that are present in those, because they're a little bit less hard pressed, a bit more flaky, and I feel like a little bit more dimensional because of that, and a little bit easier to get onto your eyelids, blend out, and you know, I just prefer that texture. And can you see how beautiful and gently this brush is picking up the product and slowly building it up, all the while being so soft and just gliding on my cheeks without really disturbing anything underneath. This is just such a beautiful, versatile brush. I travel with my Keyaki set brushes, and I always enjoy having this brush when I travel because it is such a multitasker. Okay, for blush I'm going to take this one from RMS. This is the shade Maiden's Blush, which I'm still sort of like getting to know this color and this formula. One of you asked if this is similar to the formula from Charlotte Tilbury, which is also like this beautiful baked gelée formula, and I don't know that I would say that. And I think the biggest difference here for me would be that the Charlotte Tilbury formula has that instant blurring quality. Like you put it on your cheeks and you immediately see that your cheeks look as if they have a filter on them. Whereas I don't really have the same impression with this specific formula. It might be that I just haven't worked with it enough, but even now I'm applying it and it looks fine, but it doesn't have that same instantaneous blurring quality that I'm used to with the baked gelée that is present in the Charlotte Tilbury Beautifying Palette. And now let's talk about the second brush that I picked up from the Fundamental set. This one is, I believe, new, and I think it is also just new to the Sonia G line. I don't think it existed before in a previous collection, so I have... otherwise I think I would have picked it up because I actually really like shapes like this, and what I would use a shape like this for is to apply my highlighter. Now, I've seen people use this for a variety of things. I think I've even seen Alicia Archer use this for her eyes, but honestly, I don't know that I dare to use such a huge brush for my eyelids. And I've seen people use it to set underneath their eyes. I bet that works really well if you use under eye setting powder or you set under your eyes. I don't. That's just not a technique that works for me, unfortunately. It just dries out my under eyes so badly that I've tried it a couple of times and it just doesn't work for me. But I have a similar shaped brush from Zoeva, so this one. So I already knew that a shape like this is something that I really enjoy for applying my highlighter, and I was looking into investing into a full day version of it. And I just hadn't seen anything in Sonia's line before that was quite like this. So I am very excited to try this for highlighter and to discover what kind of formulas work well with it, because of course it's quite soft, and I'm curious whether it can work with all the formulas. Going for a somewhat more cooler toned today, I'm actually going to also immediately challenge this brush because I'm going to give it a texture that is not exactly very easy to work with. So this is the Little Puck, the holiday highlighter from 2021, the champagne gold one, which is not at all a champagne gold, it's more like a pink champagne. And I'm going to just tap it up in here and see how this brush performs with this texture. This is again a very like densely pressed texture that again, isn't necessarily my favorite, and this color is also a little bit tricky for me because it is quite on the cooler side. But I think because we're going for a cooler toned look today, it should work. Oh, this brush is actually doing an excellent job at diffusing this highlighter and making it appear very smooth on the skin. Oh, so nice. Oh, I'm loving this brush. So happy with it. I don't know that I've ever really been unhappy with a Sonia G brush. It's more that some of the shapes that I have from her are more pragmatic for me and I use them more often than others. I have a few brushes from Sonia G that I enjoy, but they're just... I don't know what to use them for, which is why I use them rarely. But this one is going to go immediately into heavy rotation because I love this for highlighter. It just blends the product out so seamlessly into the skin, and it's small enough to not like go all over your face. I love it. Did I tell you that this is the Worker L? I should have probably said that. I'm going to quickly spritz my sponge here with a little bit of Fix Plus to set the powders on my face, and also run a little bit under my eyes because I forgot to put Glow Last, so my under eyes are maybe a little bit less hydrated than they would like to be. Okay, eye look. So I'm wearing my beautiful blue shirt here, which basically gives us limited options in terms of what we can do. We can do a blue smoky eye, something very neutral and coolly toned, or something very neutral, coolly toned with a lower lash line pop of color, but I kind of already did that when I was demoing the Lisa Eldridge Liquid Lurex eyeshadow. So today I actually want to go for a blue smoky eye. Sadly, Mother has never given us this specific tone of blue, which I think is called a cornflower blue. I will continue to hope for the day when she gives us a beautiful cornflower blue, specifically in her VR formula, if possible. And with a copper duochrome. I've talked about this before, but since I don't really have anything in my collection that resembles this shade, we're going to have to settle for the next best blue in our collection from Pat McGrath, which is obviously Blitz Blue from the Subliminal palette. So I am going to do like a little blue smoky eye moment with the Subliminal palette, and then we're going to do some layering with an Astral that I also don't really use all too often. But for starters, I'm just going to apply Ultimate Taupe here through my crease, and then I'm going to start building up Blitz Blue all over my lid, because like I said, we're just going for a good old smoky eye. And I think I actually might be close to hitting pan on Ultimate Taupe, because I can see a really huge dent in it. I'm going to apply this to my crease now, but I might actually dip a little bit into the darker brown in here, like the absolute lightest touch, to just give even a little bit more definition. So I'm gonna go for like a little poop here of the darker brown, and the little boop was not little, so I'm going to wipe a little bit of that off here on my microfiber cloth, and then start working it here in the crease. It's going to be just a very subtle moment, but I want to give just slightly more depth here in the crease. Okay, going in with Blitz Blue now, and I really like using shapes and brushes like this in order to apply her Blitz shades. So this type of formula, the baked formula, that is like more of an opaque color, because they are a little bit harder pressed, and you want to have something that is a little bit stiffer to pick them up, but at the same time you want to be able to blend it out. And to me this is the perfect kind of brush for that. This is the Worker Pro, also from Sonia G. It is a bit of a MAC 217 kind of situation, but I prefer it to the MAC 217 because this is a little bit more tapered and a little bit stiffer and denser, which is what I prefer for a formula like this. So I'm going to apply this on my lid and just start here at the roots of the lashes and then slowly bring it up towards the crease. And for now I'm not applying glitter glue or anything of the sort, I'm just blending, blending, blending. I don't really do dark smoky eyes like this anymore very often because they just feel a little bit less, you know, comfortable to wear. Well, not comfortable, but I feel a little bit less in the mood to wear really dark looks like this during the day at work. But hopefully the Astral shade is really going to brighten the whole situation up. And you can see obviously that these are not the exact same tone of blue. Blitz blue is much more of like a true blue. I'm going to slightly intensify here in the outer corner of the eye. I'm just going to press the eyeshadow there, because I don't think I'm going to even apply this over a glitter glue. It's just going to be over the primer, and I'm going to apply the Astral shade after that over a glitter glue. But I do want a bit more from Blitz Blue here in the outer corner, so I'm just pressing it. And then I'm going to do the tiniest bit of blending right here. And I'm also going to take the fluffy blender and also blend a bit like that. That's the thing with like dark smoky eyes, you have to like fuck around for a while to blend everything together. But today's a pet pairing day, hence we have a little bit of playtime. I'm going to take the Intensifies stick from Pat McGrath, and I'm going to apply that in my inner corners, just here from the stick. And then, because I don't want to paint the stick with Blitz Blue, I'm actually just going to apply like this on my finger and take that here on sort of like the inner portion of the lid. And the Astral is going to be this one here from the Huetopian Dream palette, because like I said, I don't actually use that shade very often. That's Astral Amethyst Moon, and for whatever reason I don't really have a lot of occasions to wear it, or I don't think of it often enough. I'm not really sure why, but I decided that today might be a great opportunity to mix in a little bit of blues and purples. So I'm going to apply this over top of Blitz Blue. And honestly, I hope we haven't really done this kind of pairing before, because it's very hard to keep track after several years what I have done and what I have not. So if I have done this before, I apologize, but lordy lord, that is pretty. Oh my gosh. For inner corner highlight, I'm just going to take the champagne shade from Subliminal, but honestly pretty much anything would do. Also the one from Huetopian Dream would be fine. And if you really wanted to go all out, you could even use Astral White. I don't think I'm going to use Astral White, because I had Astral White in my inner corners coincidentally yesterday, and I want to keep, because the rest of the eye look is relatively dark and smoky, I want to keep the inner corners very bright. On my lower lashes, I'm going to apply again a little bit of the Intensifies stick, because I want to apply Blitz Blue again, but I also want it to not move around too much during the day, and I find that Intensifies in particular is just so easy to put on your lower lashes, and it really helps with extending longevity. So I'm just going to do like a very subtle line here. That's why I picked this specific brush from Zoeva, because it is so tiny and precise. And I'm going to just run Blitz Blue here on the lower lashes. And it might be a little bit of overkill, but I'm now going to get this Kiko eyeshadow stick in the number 31. This is also what I used for that neutral look with the Lisa Eldridge Liquid Lurex eyeshadows. But I think that fits really nicely with my shirt. And it might be total overkill, but I'm going to apply that in my waterline. And we're just going to have a mix of all sorts of different blues today. Ooh, I actually like this. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to actually take a little bit here on my precision brush, and I'm going to use it to paint my lashes, because I'm not going to use mascara there. I'm just going to have this like very bright blue and also bright blue lashes. Ooh, look at that. I mean, I think it's coming across as crazy also without the artificial lighting, but under artificial lighting it just looks like a freaking party. But that was also quite unique to the Huetopian Dream palette, right? That the two Astrals were sort of like on crack, really amped up in there. Anyway, I chose Painterly from Lisa Eldridge to complete the look, because I think it like perfectly fits with the theme, like the color theme of the rest of the look, like the blush, the eyes, everything. I really love how this came together. It is definitely not the kind of eye look that I would sport on the daily. It's just too much work, too much finessing, and also a look like this could move around a bit more during the day, although I feel like I've given it a pretty solid basis now. But anyway, I am curious what you think about this look. What do you think about my ramblings regarding the different types of formulas that are present in the original queens versus the Star Wars queens. What do you think about the shades such as Mustafar Heat, which are this like very creamy, silicone-y, sleepy texture? Do you like it? How do you use it? What is your favorite way to use it? Because I can use these types of shades, but for whatever reason, I'm just not the hugest fan. Anyway, enough rambling for today. As usual, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!